You've polished, reorganized, and rewritten those notes. And you've even recited. You've gone to class. You've taken notes. You've polished, reorganized, and rewritten those notes. And you've even recited, visualized, and quizzed yourself. Over their content. So what comes next? Most likely, a test. Different classes will provide different types of tests, but your routine should be consistent on the day of your exam. For example, you should always have something to eat and make sure you have all the materials you'll need before taking your test. The methods by which you study for your tests might change, depending on the subject or type of test, but creating a general routine for test-taking days will reduce any anxiety or stress you might feel. Practice. Before the day of your test, study your materials and test yourself with the kinds of questions you think might be on the exam. Some instructors will provide a sample test or a handout for review that lists general questions related to the test material. If your instructor doesn't provide any review materials, you can use your textbook and notes to create your own. Chapter headings, subheadings, and highlighted words in your textbook, as well as the main ideas from your class notes, will help you make your own practice test. While this preparation will take time, the benefit may be less anxiety, more confidence, and even a letter grade higher than usual. Take the time needed to make a practice test into consideration when planning your test preparation routine. Practice taking your test by simulating test-like conditions. Try not to look at your notes or textbook while you take your practice test. Have a time limit and set an alarm to go off when your time is up. In this way, you can gain a better sense of how well you know. While test taking can be stressful, following a routine on test days will help relieve stress. Study your material and practice taking a test in conditions that are similar to those of the real thing. If you also develop good habits beforehand, you are likely to feel much less anxious than you have in the past. While test taking can be stressful, following a routine on test days will help relieve stress. Study your material and practice taking a test in conditions that are similar to those of the real thing. If you also develop good habits beforehand, you are likely to feel much less anxious than you have in the past. During your test. Every master test taker knows the trick to staying on course during an exam, employing useful and allowed strategies. When you catch your first glimpse of your test, you might feel your anxiety rise. That's normal, but you can When you catch your first glimpse of your test, you might feel your anxiety rise. That's normal, but you can quickly calm your nerves by following some simple strategies. Memory cues. When you receive your test, write down any information that you will need to know and are afraid you will forget. Check with your instructor that it's okay to write on the test page. If it's not, ask if you can have a blank sheet of paper on which to write your notes. Such cues might include formulas, dates, acronyms, and a few important facts. You can write anything on your test or note paper that you think you might forget. If your test is on a computer, check with the instructors monitoring the test-taking lab about using scratch paper. Even if they don't allow you to use blank paper that you brought with you. Preview. Take a few moments to look over the test before you begin. Note the types of questions on the test and how they are weighted for grading. By previewing the test, you can further reduce stress. You'll get a sense of what the test is asking from you rather than guessing what might be coming up next. If you're taking a test on a computer, previewing each section might not be possible. However, there might be an option for you to go back to a previous question after you've answered. Don't skip a question if you're unsure whether Be aware of time. To budget your time wisely, try not to spend too much time on one question. If you don't know the answer to a particular question, skip it if you can. Make a mark off to the side or write the question number on your note sheet so that you can return to it later. Answer the questions you find easiest first. This practice will not only save you time, but also will build your confidence and lessen your anxiety. You might even come across a hint in one of the questions that will help with a more difficult one. If your test has an essay portion, be sure to leave yourself enough time to complete it to your satisfaction. But if you prefer to write your essay first, don't spend too much time on it and forget that you have other questions to answer. Review. If you have time before turning in your test, go back through your answers and make sure that you haven't accidentally skipped any questions. Some instructors will give their students some points for incorrect answers, so don't leave any blank if you know that is the case. But make sure before writing down any answers unnecessarily, or you might lose points. If you notice a question you think you answered incorrectly, be careful of changing it without serious consideration. Research has indicated that our first instincts are usually the best. Unless you are certain that the first answer you chose is wrong, it might be best to leave your answer as is. Read through any short answers or essays When I was in school, I hated tests. I hated them like a tomcat hates a bucket of water. All the studying and all the reading felt like 10-ton weights tied to my ankles. Studying ate a huge chunk of time out of my day, just like a shark in a tuna factory. And always, looking out a window, I felt I needed to be out there. So, yeah, I slacked off for a while. A long while. But I always managed to cram before a test. And when it came time for the exam, usually the next day, I was always so nervous. Yeah, I studied. I'd load up on caffeine and pull an all-nighter. But would I remember everything? Occasionally I'd forget things or zone out, and instead of trying to remember, I'd just skip the question. But then I'd forget to go back and answer it. That happened a lot. It was a mess. I was a mess. The day after an all-nighter, my mind was like Swiss cheese. Anyway, I managed to get through school, but it was definitely a struggle. I still hate tests. When I have to take them for my job, I just grit my teeth and bear it. But they're less stressful now because I know the material so well. Swiss cheese. Anyway, I managed to get through school, but it was definitely a struggle. I still hate tests. When I have to take them for my job, I just grit my teeth and bear it. But they're less stressful now because I know the material so well. Over the years, I found some good ways to help me prepare so that I don't have to pull any more all-nighters. After all, the questions are relevant to the job I do every day.
I didn't hate tests in school, but I didn't exactly love them either. Let's just say I saw them as a necessary evil, kind of like going to the dentist. I just had to tough it out and get through them. When my teacher announced a test, I'd start studying that same day. I always wanted to do well. I really wanted to impress my instructor, my parents, my friends, even myself. I wanted to ace my test so badly that I'd try to remember everything I could, and I'd get so anxious when I felt I wouldn't be able to. It's like I told myself, if I don't study this, I won't remember that, or, well, I really need to study harder because I didn't do well on that quiz.
After your test. After giving yourself a well-deserved pat on the back for completing another test, take a step back and look at what you got right and wrong, and what your instructor had to say about it all. Congratulate yourself after your test for working hard, regardless of your score. Your best efforts deserve to be recognized, so don't start worrying about the next test just yet. You can further improve your test performance by reviewing your test when you get it back from your instructor. Instead of tossing your graded tests in the trash, keep them and study their content. Not only will they improve your knowledge of the material, but they can also be useful when studying for a midterm. Summary. You know that tests have staying power. But what's even more lasting is the wealth of information they contain. So don't check out just yet. There's always more to learn. If you're the type who always gets anxious before a test, remember that you're not alone. Many students can barely stand the thought of their next exam. The good news is that there are strategies you can use to reduce anxiety and better prepare before, during, and after a test. Tests are important because they affect your overall course grade, but remember that they're also good practice and contain useful information. To conclude this lesson, you'll describe the changes you've made to your test-taking habits and the types of results you've seen.